You're listening to the Business Club for Grown-Ups podcast with Jessica Fearnley. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Business Club for Grown-Ups podcast with me, Jessica Fearnley. Now today I am joined by a very special guest. I have with me Jessica Dornieden, who is a business friend of mine. She's been my client, I am now hers. Jess runs her own VA agency. She's a very organised person. She's a very unflappable person. She's got some brilliant things to teach us all about planning our businesses. And she's actually my guest this month in the Business Club for Grown-Ups membership group. And I'll tell you more about that later in the episode. Today, she's going to tell us a bit about her business story, about how she got to where she is today and the lessons that she's learned along the way. So I'm going to hand over to you, Jess. Feel free to introduce yourself in a bit more detail than I have there, and tell us a little bit about how you started your business journey.
Sure. So my name is Jessica Dornieden. Like you already said, I have my own agency, part VA, part digital marketing, so a little bit more advanced stuff. So it's basically all the tech that nobody wants to touch. That's like 90% of our work. And my business started when, back in the day, it was about 2.5 years ago now, when I was still working in nursery, and I was really frustrated by the limitations as far as income goes. And I knew that we wanted to have our own family, and it just wasn't going to happen in that job because all of my income would have gone for childcare. There would have been no point in going to work. So I started looking for alternatives, and suddenly I clicked on a random Facebook ad by accident, and then I ended up on someone's business coaching page, and I was like, business coaching, what is this? And then I discovered the online business world, and I totally went down the rabbit hole, and I haven't come out since then. I initially took the VA route. I discovered that by complete accident because somebody else said to me, hey, you know all this tech stuff, couldn't you like make a business out of helping people with that? And I'm like, oh, wow, now that you're saying it, I guess I could do that. And that all worked almost too quickly. So it was about 3 months after I started, I had too many clients to handle by myself because I still had my full-time job. And so then
your full-time job at this point was being
nursery
a nursery manager in London,
yes.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's
kind of what, 8 till 6, because nurseries do long hours, don't they?
Yeah, we had to be there at like 7:20. There was a lot of problems where I was working, so there was good times to be had at work. So a lot of times I was there at 7:20 and leaving at like 7:20 at night because I couldn't always do work during the day and the phone was ringing nonstop. So I had to put in the hours that I had to put in to get the job done. And then I came home and I basically ran the business from after dinner until like bedtime at 10 p.m. I think the only thing I never sacrificed was sleep. So like my sleep time was always 10 to 6, even if I did like half an hour of work before going to work. And then obviously weekends. So I spent a good few months saying no to everything at the weekend. Barbecues, no. Birthdays, no. Because I knew I kind of had to put that time in to like get this up and running. But within 3 months, those 2-3 hours at night were not enough. So I could either increase my prices significantly, but I felt like I was almost too tired to be doing more high-level work at like 9 p.m. at night. So I went the team route instead. And it kind of grew from there. So yeah, it was never planned to turn out this way, but it just worked. And then another 3 months later was the happiest day ever because I got to say to my work that I will no longer be working for them in 6 weeks' time. So, so I've been full-time in the business for nearly 2 years, which is incredible. I don't even know where the time went.
And then how long did you have kind of working on your business full-time before you had the next like bump in the road / very exciting life event?
I found out a week before my notice period at nursery expired that I'm pregnant. So
because life just does that to us sometimes, doesn't it? We have it all mapped out in terms of how it's going to work, and then suddenly life just happens. So like obviously it's an amazing thing when you find out that you're pregnant, and it changes life forever. How did you feel in that moment when you've got a week to go in your paid job and all your security, and you're thinking, right, the field is open, let's get this business going?
I'm not swearing because I have to edit it out. So I didn't feel very good about it. I thought it was very poor timing, to be very honest. I was just looking forward to being really like full-time and having all that. Like, I've been doing so many amazing things in 3 hours a day and the weekends. I was like, wow, what can I do once I'm like full-time and I can just really go ahead and like push on? And then the tiredness kicked in and I felt like a dead body warmed up half the days. And then I got really sick and I was like, oh, I just feel ill and I want to stay in bed and not open my eyes. And I was like, it didn't exactly go the way I wanted it to go. So that like November to February time period when that happened, it was a complete waste. Like I don't even think I made any money in that time period. I had obviously new clients booked to prepare to be like full-time and not have my job anymore, and I couldn't deliver on some of that work because I was just too sick. Like I had some kind of vertigo that just wouldn't go, and I couldn't look at any screens, not the TV, not my phone, nothing. It was kind of triggering it. So yeah, that was very, very, very disappointing. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's never a right time, right? So what can you do apart from trying to deal with it? So
yeah, and I think that's huge, isn't it? As entrepreneurs, so often we just feel like if this little issue can just get solved, you know, if I can quit my day job and then have time, then everything will be perfect. But then we just lurch from one like bump in the road to the next bump in the road, don't we? And actually so much of being good at being an entrepreneur is about that resilience and that adaptability, because stuff just happens, you know. Even running the business, like Facebook will announce a new algorithm change and suddenly your social media content needs to be completely different. Your whole strategy needs to change. So actually that adaptability, it's not fun learning it, is it? But it really does serve you.
It does. And at the end, it's like the creative problem solving that you just need to do. And there's no point, like, I mean, I know it's annoying when stuff changes, but I can waste 5 hours being upset about it, or I can put those 5 hours into trying to work out a different plan and then just implementing that. So I've always tried to focus on that. So my key thing was that if I don't plan that time period, there's going to be a big problem, because obviously we were reliant on my income. So it wasn't a case that I was running the business for fun. Like I pay 50% of the bills. Plus I knew that if I wanted childcare, I would end up having to pay for that. So, there was no way that I could not make it work. So in a way, I think it possibly even stopped me from sinking into saying, oh, you know, I don't have to do that much work, and it's okay if it doesn't work out. That's okay if I buy this on the credit card and stuff like that, because, you know, I will have a child to feed in exactly 8 months, 7 months, 6 months.
Yeah, it's like that countdown, isn't it, to when you have it. And I don't know, I can really relate to that, because when I started my business, my first son was about a year old, sort of in his first year, definitely. But I always thought my goal straight away is going to be to build up this business. If I earn double in the first year, then I can afford to have a second baby in the second year. But actually earning single is hard enough when you just getting yourself off the ground. And I found it so hard to maintain any kind of income in that first year. And so the pressure that I put on myself to then even go beyond what was really possible for me at that time. And you're thinking, but what are we going to do? Because we want to have a second baby, but like, when are we ever going to be able to afford it? And I think that kind of urgency, well, I just tend to just say, fine, like we're just going to have to just carry on and do what we can to make this work. But I think you're right, that when you can get to that point where you just stop panicking and you just say, right, action stations, let's stop the drama and let's just do some stuff. That's when it can really help, can't it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I do, it was a friend of mine that actually gave that tip like outright the other day, but he said, whenever you feel like you're freaking out about something, set a timer on your phone and give yourself 5 minutes to freak out. And when that timer rings, that's it. Like, make a list of things that you could do to solve that problem, establish which one's the best one to go with, and just start implementing it. Because it's so difficult, like particularly when you are kind of, I'm a fairly emotional person, like funnily enough that people say that I'm kind of very straightforward, but I'm very emotional. So I can get very upset internally. I won't run about crying, being like, oh my God, like this is all falling apart. But
it's going on internally. Yeah.
Yes. And I will feel it. I'll go off food. Like I can recognize the signs of feeling like stressed about something, but I just try not to sit there and just like go on and on and on and on in my head, because if there's nothing I can do, then I don't need to worry about it. And if there is something I can do, then I need to go and do it.
Yeah, it's better to just get it done.
Yeah, that's been my approach. And I think that's helped me, because sometimes things just go wrong. Like, whether it's with our own work, sometimes, something, you could be doing something mid-launch for a client and something doesn't work. Like, this kind of stuff happens. All I can do is fix it. Like, that's as far as it's going to get. So I think that's been really important for me. But definitely having a plan was like the key thing, because it was a very scary time, because it's the unexpected, right? Because you don't know what's going to hit you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so jumping back into your story, this is around the time that we met, isn't it?
Because yeah, it is.
We were both pregnant at that time. I think, did I have my second maybe 3 months before you had your first? But it was all going down in 2017, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was about the same time. There was a whole bunch of us having babies. So it was like, oh dear.
So we met as pregos, both kind of thinking, how are we going to do this? And yeah, the whole process of us working together was getting you sorted with a plan, wasn't it? So that you actually knew how we were going to play this and how things were going to work essentially once the baby arrived.
Because I think it was the unknown of like, we went for hope for the best, but expect the worst. So we kind of planned bearing in mind that I might not be able to do a single thing for possibly some time, because that's the issue. Like, you might have the most peaceful baby that just eats, sleeps and poops like it's supposed to, and you're perfectly happy. And then you might have mine, So it's like, okay. So in a way it was good it went that way. So I think it helped me a lot to have like a 5-6 month period where we were planning these things out. Knowing that I have something to prepare for helped me to keep me sane. It stopped me from worrying, because I knew, okay, I'm going to go for outsourcing this amount of work. We'd looked at the money side of things. I had the unknown of not knowing whether I would get any maternity if I didn't do any, if it had to come to not get any work. So that took some time to get resolved. So there was a lot of unknowns, but I felt like I knew which way I was going to go.
Because I remember around that time, that was when you were making that big transition from sort of doing a lot of the work on your own to then having this idea for the agency and getting more freelancers involved, having lots of people. I remember you were saying at the time, kind of, you wanted to be able to be the complete package for your clients. So they would come to you and they would get kind of the graphics, the Facebook ads, the PA stuff, the tech stuff, all of it would happen under your brand. But that was a big step to be taking. It felt, it was very much an unknown thing, wasn't it? Because it was the idea, but so often we have these ideas, and then when you put them into practice, you realize actually it's not going to work in that way. Changes have got to be made. So you had that pressure of trying something that was quite new, alongside also going into this like countdown of the baby is coming in August. So like everything has got to be ready. Oh my gosh, how is it going to work?
Yeah, that was kind of the difficult thing, but actually it wasn't that bad. Like, looking back, my first priority was get the clients sorted that we already have, because I didn't want their quality of service to go down, and I didn't want to lose them as clients, because I knew that I wanted to continue my business. Like that's like been the one decision I made. Work was to continue. It would be different, but I wasn't planning to like seriously take time off unless I had to. So the only way to keep then adding value was by offering the things that we don't currently offer. And doing that actually made our life a lot easier, because now we had less people to talk to. We had less third parties to like run after, be like, get this piece from that person, get that piece from that person. So yeah, I think in the end it all worked out pretty well. If anyone's listening and thinking of building an agency business, make sure you know your numbers around profit margins.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just so important.
Yes, because it sounds really lucrative. Hey, I'll charge this much and I won't actually do any of the work myself, and I get to keep X amount. Well, by the time you've gotten paid, taken your taxes off, paid yourself for the project management part that you're doing, or paid someone else to do that, paid all the freelancers that are doing the work, paid your service providers, you have to make sure that there is enough left. And I mean, ideally you'd want to keep 50%. I'd say a lot of agencies are closer to 30, which actually isn't all that much in like the grand scheme of things. So yeah, if you're thinking of building an agency, know your numbers.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful advice, because we've talked before on this podcast about the difference between turnover and profit. And
Yes.
turnover can be very, very high, but
Yeah.
profit can be non-existent. And I think that's very easily done with an agency model, because increasingly, I think if you want to get highly skilled people who are actually very good at what they do, you have to pay for that, don't you? So you can end up actually just either making such a marginal profit that you think, I could have just stayed in bed and probably not done all of this work and had almost the same amount of money. It needs to be something. I always say to clients, the house has to win. The house always wins. That's the formula that you've got to work to with an agency. But I think that's really, really helpful advice.
I know people keep hitting up on everyone else that says you need a 6-figure business. If you run an agency and you want to get a salary that's above minimum wage, you need a 6-figure business. End off. Because by the time you've paid everything and everyone else, you'd be lucky. Like, I was getting about 25K annually as a nursery manager. I would be lucky to take that home if the agency wasn't a 6-figure business. There's just no other way, because your bills, like, they add up so quickly that you're like, okay, I'll just pay this, pay that, put some money over here. I'm like, okay. So those are like things that you have to factor in, like, at the planning stage already, because otherwise that's going to be a big problem. And then it's like you said, you feel a bit resentful because you're thinking, why am I doing all of this work and then I'm not actually getting paid a fair amount? So those are the things that I would consider from day one. And like you already said, with team members, you really have 2 choices. One is you hire cheap and you invest the time to train, which personally I love doing. It's my more favorite approach. Or you hire skilled and you pay possibly even 10 times as much for the person, and you have to hope that they actually deliver, because surprisingly I've worked with a whole bunch of people that had like extortionate hourly rates and the work was not all that amazing in relation to what I'm paying. So the team aspect is certainly something to consider. So, and particularly when you're going into the having a baby stage, you've got to factor in, by when do you need these people if you are training them? So how long is it going to take you to train them? What's your plan to actually achieve that? So I went for a mix of hiring people to train and hiring some people that already knew a good bit of the work that we do an awful lot of, to try and kind of save my time a little bit.
Yeah, because you always had kind of at least one person who was sort of your right-hand woman, didn't you, who you could really count on, and you knew that if everything else like fell apart, then they would be able to steer the ship.
Yeah, and that was the key thing. I kind of always needed somebody else, and at that point, that is what saved things from going down. Because you know, when you have a baby and it's like 3:00 in the morning and you've been like up the 15th time, and then you have to get up at 8 and check the emails and like do all that stuff, and you're just like, I really cannot do that right now. Like I was actually better at doing the more complicated work, but it was those redundant things that have to be done every day at a certain time. Those were the things that were really stressing me out. So
because let's jump back into the story, because I really vividly remember when you had Jack, because we had a group call because you were in the mastermind that I ran, and I just remember on the Friday you were on the call and you were like, I'm just going to turn my video feed off because I think I'm having contractions. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, like, you don't have to be on the call if you're having a baby today. But he wasn't born until the Monday, was he? But that was also kind of funny because you were meant to be doing an interview with someone, and then you were really upset. Tell us about that.
Okay, so I kind of went into labor on the Thursday, like in the afternoon, but it kept starting and stopping, so nothing was happening. And then on the Friday morning, we had the mastermind call, and I was like, oh, I don't really look right or feel right, but to be honest, like, I'm fine. So like, I want to be on the call. So I got on the call, but like you said, I want to keep my video off because I really don't look particularly snazzy right now. And then it got worse Saturday, Sunday, to the point where at some point, like, I remember lying on the kitchen counter being like, oh, I'm kind of in a lot of pain. And then Monday morning, I had a really bad night that night, but I phoned the hospital and they were like, oh, you don't sound like you're in a lot of pain. So it's still going to be a long way. It's going to get a lot worse. And then I was supposed to do an interview with Cheryl actually on Monday morning for her summit. And I ended up going to hospital at 6, and they were like, oh, 7 centimeters, quickly, get you a room. Like, how are you even? I'm like, well, I told you I was in pain. But I did consider, like, I was like, I was wondering if I could still make the interview because I wasn't actually feeling that terrible. I love
Is
work
that
so
is
much.
that in later stage of labour, or is that literally just having had a baby?
That was like the later stage of labor. The interview was supposed to be at 10, and he was born at 11:30.
It really entertains me, the thought that you'd do an interview and you'd have to keep pausing to have a contraction.
I don't think I even would have. I would have just said, by the way, I'm having a baby, so just keep rolling. Like I can still talk. But the funny thing is, I was talking and walking until like about 40 minutes or so before he was born, and then I kind of went unconscious. So that would have probably like happened sort of mid-interview, which would have been funny to see. But yeah,
I think for anyone listening who's having a baby or that's on the cards, I think probably just try and clear your schedule towards the end of your pregnancy, and particularly in labour. I think I'm a bit more normal than you, Jess, in this respect. But when I've been in labour, I haven't even been able to think about anything, and I've been in the zone straight away. And I remember in NCT they said to us, think of some quite relaxing tasks you can do, like putting photos in photo albums. And
what?
Like with both my labours, I could not have done anything. I asked Andy, my husband, to pack a Hilary Mantel novel about the French Revolution that I was thinking about reading, and I was like, you can read it to me when I'm in labour. He could not have read it to me in labour. I would not have even known what my name was, let alone what was going on in the French Revolution in this novel. And he laughed at me at the time, and he was like, you're insane, you're not going to want to read that. I was like, I am, put it in the bag. I think, it's good to plan to have some days off, to have a baby. I think that's a reasonable thing.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable thing for most people to do. The thing is, his due date wasn't actually until August, and he was born 2 weeks early. So it kind of hit at a time where I was still expecting to be working.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting him to come at 38 weeks, particularly not as I don't know.
Because he was a smaller baby anyway.
Wedding. Yeah, he was a smaller baby. Yeah, I'm just kind of the person, when I have a plan, and I don't like other things to come along and mess up my plans. So
it's funny that you say that in the context of talking about babies, because if there's one thing a baby likes to do, it's to disrupt everything, and in the most wonderful way, because they're such a blessing to have, aren't they? But tell us a little bit about what it's been like running your business with Jack in tow.
Messy. I think the word that describes it is messy. So all the planning we did paid off. Hoping for the best and expecting the worst for sure paid off, because he wasn't the easiest baby. He was a low birth weight. It turned out had a dairy intolerance. He screamed an awful lot. So noise cancelling headphones are a great investment when you have a baby that cries a lot, because otherwise you will go insane. So I'd done everything, you hold the baby, you try and feed the baby, you burp the baby, you see if it's got wins, you do anything, and the screaming continued. So that was the hardest thing. I mean, I didn't realistically have any actual time off. I worked the day after he was born. I would have worked in hospital if I had my laptop, but I didn't. So I literally had a day off that we were just camping in the hospital waiting to go home. And I've always been able to do things, but it's for sure not been consistent. I was very stressed initially because I like to be in control of what I do when, and like you said, baby just doesn't play to that tune. So that was kind of there was a new schedule to get used to. So he woke regularly every 3 hours, and he had periods of intense screaming in the middle of the night that I knew I wouldn't be able to catch any sleep. So my only solid stretch of sleep guaranteed was 8 till midnight, and then from midnight to 4 a.m. I could be up every night. So I decided to put the time to use. So I kind of threw out any traditional idea of when you should be working and that you work during the day and you don't work at night. I just did what I had to do to sort of get through the days. So I would wake up at 6, and then I would have had 3 hours of sleep at that point. The first time he has a nap, I would work. The second time he has a nap, I would nap. The third time he has a nap, I would work. And I continued that 24/7 round the clock. So I would be working mid-morning, mid-afternoon, at middle of the night at some point. So I was online on Slack at 2 a.m., which is funny because one of the girls that's been working with me for 2 years, she's also had a baby a couple of months before me. And she basically was also up at 2 a.m. working. So she was doing the same thing because we knew we just have to get it done, and it doesn't matter when it's getting done. So, yeah. And then I went through a stage of wanting to fix like as he got older, it became apparent that his sleep was a big issue. Like we've talked about this like at length probably, but yeah, he just wouldn't sleep. At no amount of sleep training would get this child to like sleep more than 3 hours. And then I went through a stage of him sleeping 45 minutes at the time.
Yeah, he's always done kind of between 5 and 10 wake ups, hasn't he?
Yes.
Like it's been very, very disrupted nights for a long, long period.
And I've worked with a sleep consultant. I've been desperately trying to fix it, and things weren't getting better for me until I stopped fixing it. I just went one day, I was like, yeah, just leave it. Like, what's the point? Like, he obviously doesn't want to be sleep trained. Nothing that's supposed to be working is doing anything for him. So what can I do apart from stop stressing about it? So,
I think that's actually really important, because definitely when my first son was a baby, I think I was a very stressed new mum, and I found like he wasn't quite as extreme as Jack, I think, in terms of sleep and all the crying, but he was very unsettled for about 6 months, and it really peaked around 5 months. He started teething when he was 10 weeks old, and no teeth actually came through between sort of being 2.5 months until he was 5 months. I remember it was the week before Christmas, and a tooth finally appeared, and I nearly fell on the floor. I was just like, oh gosh,
hallelujah. You're like, hallelujah.
But you know, we'd had some very disrupted nights. I think I got very little sleep for about 6 months after he was born, and I treated it like a problem that needed to be solved, and all of my thought went into kind of how can I fix this? What system can I try? What book can I read? What technique can we use? And in the end, actually, sleep training was very effective for us when he was between 6 and 7 months old. And I'd fall into the trap of giving him a dummy, which I think I didn't want to actually, but then after 3 days after he was born, of him he had one night where he didn't sleep at all, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
You won't do anything.
That you get to that point, don't you? And I think that happened probably when he was about 5 days old, and I was like, oh, screw all those ideas I had about not having dummies, like we just need to use it. But actually the dummy became a real problem for us around sort of that phase when he was approaching 6 months old, because I remember one
night, they don't know how to put it back in, and then you do the dummy run. I'm like, I'm on the dummy run.
I was up 11 times a night at one point, just putting the dummy back in, and it was like, where's the dummy? You know, everything in our house revolved around dummy. And so someone said to me, do you know, you just have to take it away. And at the time I just thought, I definitely can't do that. The dummy is keeping our household together.
So easy though, 2 nights, 3 nights, and that thing is gone. But you know the best thing, it didn't make a difference in our house. He still woke up exactly the same number of times. So the thing wasn't even the problem. So I've been constantly looking for a problem, and it's like you said, your whole mental energy goes into what is the problem. Like you spend hours at night like reading, trying to figure it out. And once I stopped, I actually managed to like direct my mental energy back to where it's supposed to be. And it just kind of all like worked out. I mean, I'm still up in the night. I still have more bad nights than we have good nights, like realistically. But you know what? I'm not upset with him.
He's just being a baby.
I just get on
not
with
doing anything wrong.
And I used to laugh about people that say that, oh, you know, they just can't sleep train their child. They're just super weak. I'm like, no, I've tried the 3-4 hours of sleep, like of screaming at night. I've tried it. Like, you know, I've studied early years for a reason. But that's the thing. I
feel like with your nursery experience, you've seen more babies than most new mums. So, you know,
it still doesn't help though.
And that's the thing, isn't it? I think that's really important. So if you're listening to this and you're planning to have a baby soon, just don't be terrified by what we're saying. So to balance it out slightly, my second son has been just such an easy baby. I have no idea where he's picked it up from, because it doesn't feel like it's genetically from me or from my husband. But he's just such a relaxed little guy, and
he's just so cool. He's just like, I'm just gonna sit here.
Yeah, he's just so content. He loves people watching, and I think he's so my first son is very task focused, which is probably like me, so he doesn't really care what other people are doing, as long as he can do the thing that he's got his heart set on, which increasingly as he gets older he can't always do exactly what he wants. And so that's a definite battle that we have to fight a lot with him. But my second son, if he's got people to watch, then he's pretty happy. And so we've probably had like 4 days in his life where he's been grumpy, and the rest of the time he just laughs at everything, smiles at everyone, he loves everything. And it's very different doing it, but it's like this lottery, isn't it? You can't control what baby you're given, and so you have to plan. I think, like we've been saying, it's good to plan as if you'll be really tired and feel really overwhelmed and just not be able to face doing any work, because then you've got the systems in place, rather than approaching that whole thing and saying, oh, actually, let's plan for me to work 5 days a week and it'll probably be fine and I'll probably get sleep. Because if you build all those assumptions into your business plan for after the baby arrives, then you can just end up having no sleep, feeling overwhelmed, being behind with work, and then having to create a support system on top of all of that. So I think it's really wise to assume that things will be as hard as they can possibly be, because then if you need to scale down the support that you've put in place for yourself, you're not having to just do it all as you go, whilst also looking after a baby, feeling overwhelmed and getting behind.
Or not scale it down and use all of that extra time that you've just gathered to like really focus on actually growing the business, because that was like the hardest thing. For ages, I was worried that, I mean, I had the team in place and the work was getting done, but I was worried about growth, because a business has to grow. Like, you find that once you kind of stay stagnant, and then it sort of starts going down slightly, and then the momentum is gone. And I wanted to keep that momentum, like whatever it takes. So I think the biggest thing is to just scale back your expectations of yourself. Housework, cooking the dinner, whatever else you don't have to do. Like, you can't do everything 100% at this point. Like, something's going to have to give. So if you are dealing with the baby, plus you are running the business and you're bringing money that you're paying into your household, somebody else has got to give you a hand at home. And if that doesn't happen, which is a problem that certainly we've had, then you pay somebody else out of your household budget to come and look after the child or do your cleaning. Like, sorry, but if you're not getting the help that you need to stand up for yourself. And the biggest tip I can probably give you is to stand up for yourself in the early days and not get into a habit of always dealing with the baby, because otherwise you will be totally stuck in that trap. And then that's a problem that you will unravel like 15 months later. So I think for me, I said, I don't care about my kitchen floor being not cleaned every day. Sorry, don't care. I don't care about my bathtub that I never use not getting cleaned every weekend. Sorry. Like, I just had to, I treated weekdays and weekends the same, because I had such limited time that I kind of had to piece them together. And then when I wasn't working, but when it was my time to like nap, I happily napped, because it's my turn to nap now. I've done my work, or I want to go to the shops. I want to go grab a coffee. Like, we're so stuck sometimes in that 9 to 5 mindset where we have to be working during certain hours, but we don't. So make the most of it. Get that team in place, find the right people, get your systems sorted out so that you can actually train those people. And then once the baby's there, like, reassess your situation and decide, hey, okay, I think I know now roughly what I can do. And don't plan for too long in advance, because the baby keeps changing. So and was perfect for 2 weeks, then a nightmare, particularly around the 4-month stage. But he's like the happiest toddler on planet Earth. Like, he just laughs, smiles, sings, babbles along to himself, plays with his toys. I can easily have him sit to play with his toys for an hour. And he'll play by himself. He won't even need anything. He takes the books out of his book basket. He reads them. He talks to himself. If there's music on, he'll sing along to it. And I can do whatever I want. He doesn't need me for anything. However, he was the most difficult baby that I've had to look after as yet. And babies were my thing for 10 years. So it changes, you know.
Yeah, and I think even
I could do more.
Well, if babies start off quite hard work, they do usually get to a certain age where they just suddenly, they've learned to do the thing that was frustrating them, or physically they're not in discomfort in the way they have been. And so my son was quite a difficult baby. He was sick probably 20 to 30 times a day for the first year, which, you know, everyone goes, oh, after solid food he won't do that anymore. No, he did, and it was really grim, on friends' sofas and carpets and that kind of thing. It's terrible, because you don't want to feel kind of annoyed with your child, but sometimes I was like, you know, I was really hoping we'd come to this play date and make a friend. Instead, you've like vommed lentils on their sofa, and now we have to go home. But he grew out of it a year, but he's got better and more manageable, I think, every year that he's grown up. I think 3 was a particular cherry of a year because he was just feeling a lot of frustration, but actually he's doing so well now that he's 4, and I feel like him being able to talk in a more kind of sophisticated way now that he's at school as well, I think that's really helped him. And, you know, there are people in my family who say that I was quite similar as a child, so he probably has got it directly from me. I think my mother has greatly enjoyed watching me go through this whole process, because she's like, now you know.
I was apparently also the king of 20-minute naps and then being awake for 5 hours at a very young age. So,
Oh gosh.
I have FOMO. I still have FOMO as an adult. I don't like missing out on things, and neither does my baby. So, like,
and it's funny, isn't it? The traits you can see in yourself that you can link back to your child, yes. And you can see how the two of them work together.
Yeah.
So Jess, what would you say has been the most important thing that you've learned over the last 2 years running your business, having a baby, doing everything all at once?
Yeah, just keep calm and carry on. Some days I can only laugh about it. Like, I had days, like I had a day last week where I slept for 2 hours and I had like a load of appointments in the day and I could have gone and cancelled them all. But I was like, come on, realistically, sometimes you just have a bad day. So I'm just going to tell people that I haven't had a lot of sleep. And if it's going to be a very difficult topic we're going to be talking about, I'm going to ask them if they mind if we reschedule. Other than that, it's like, I'm good. Get a support system. That's been really important for me, and not so much at home, although get childcare, honestly. So if you're thinking about getting childcare, but you feel super guilty, not because it's not in line with your values, but because it's what other people tell you is not okay, go and get childcare anyways and tell those people to go and get lost. That was like the best thing I could do. I had help for somebody for like 2 5-hour slots a week since he was 6 weeks old. Then when we moved up north, I got help for like 2 longer days a week, and then he started nursery a couple of months back, and he's loved every day at nursery since. Like, he's got his favorite teachers. He screams his head off when I take him off his favorite teacher in the evenings. So like, this has been the best thing I could do, because now I have the time to just work, focus, and that team, if you do it right, your team is so amazing. Like, when you had a bad day, you can talk to them about the fact that you've had a bad day. And like, we've made real friendships like that last a lifetime. So it's nothing to be scared about. I know it's work. I know you have to train people, but if I hadn't had that team, I would have lost. If I didn't get help when I needed it, it wouldn't have worked out. And if I hadn't planned and kept calm and done the work, I wouldn't be sitting here either. So I think those were like the most important things for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important. So I definitely did not want to send my older son to nursery when he was 1. I'd always had in my mind that I wouldn't do that. That wasn't the kind of family we were. But then I just didn't really like being at home mum that much. And I was actually really surprised how much I loved sending him to nursery, and he liked going. And so with my second, he started when he was 5 months old. I think he used to sort of be asleep next to me when I was working. And it would be fine to do that with him on calls. And then suddenly around 4 months old, he suddenly started getting a bit more ego, and he was very jealous for my attention. I remember I had one client call where he cried the entire time and he just would not be quiet. And I was saying, come on, let's stop. And you talk to babies like that, don't you? You kind of try and reason with them and say, come on, mummy's doing a call. This is not very appropriate behavior. And he just looked at me like, I don't care. And then as soon as I finished the call, he just looked at me and smiled. And I was like, oh, you cheeky boy.
Yeah,
but I think that was the point when I just thought, I think we've made it work up until now with getting help from friends and, having my mum maybe come and sit with him for an hour so I can just see a client. But I think having proper childcare really makes such a big difference to what you're able to do. And he's loved it. He loves his nursery workers. I think partnering with them and getting their feedback on how your kids are doing developmentally can be really helpful, because you can actually be more thoughtful about the things that you're seeing in them and how to help them move on to the next stage, how to help them deal with frustration when they find it. I found it a really good partnership, actually.
Yeah, it's super helpful, and particularly because Jack's, like, with his physical development, absolutely not on track. So I've got the physio to go to, I've got pediatrics to go to, I've got the dietitian to go to, I've got nursery, but we're all working together on the same things. So actually we're seeing like significantly more progress because they're dedicated people that have the time to do his exercises X amount in the day, whereas at the weekend it's laundry, it's shopping, it's this, is that, and I get his exercises in for like 5 minutes twice a day. They can do it for like 5-10 minutes 10 times a day, whenever he's playing, they're there for him. So it's been hugely beneficial. And I knew it would be, having been on the other side of that fence for like the longest time. I knew it would be great. It's a financial commitment, but I think to me it's been worth it. Like the time that I've gotten back, how I've been able to like just think and plan, and knowing like my entire calendar, if you see it set up, it like revolves around childcare. So I mark my available work time like in my calendar as blocks, and then I put specific things I do, specific days, specific times on top of that. And then I have slots that are open for calls, but it all revolves around childcare. And if I didn't have those clear amounts of time to work, discovery calls are difficult because people can book them as and when it suits them. And maybe that 20-minute slot isn't ideal for your baby's routine. And you know, it just makes life so much easier to know what you can and can't do.
And I think it's really helpful, kind of that piece of advice that you're giving everyone listening to this, of just know yourself, know what help you need, and don't be afraid to ask for it, because I think it's when we try and take everything upon ourselves and when we just treat it as if, you know, we're superwoman and we can do everything, that's when the pressure on us is just huge, and it can feel completely crushing and overwhelming when you just have so much to do, particularly when you're going through that phase with a new baby and you're just not getting any sleep. It's really good to be kind to yourself and actually make it possible for you to achieve a lot in that phase by involving other people, whether it's childcare, getting a cleaner involved at home, you know, building a team in your business and just having that backup so that you know that you can just go to bed. You can just go to bed one day if you need to. I think
I had to. There was days where I just had to. I'm like, sorry guys, I love you, but I need to go sleep. Like, I've been awake all night. And if you work with people that are in a similar boat as you, I don't know what employers' problems is, like, you know, actual local employers about hiring mums, because we have to feed our children. So to me, they're like, my favorite people to have on my team are mums that live somewhere where there is no work and they have to feed the kids. Any mum will do anything it takes to put food on the table. So that's been like the most dedicated people. And when it's not going well for you, you can say, hey guys, like, last night it was bad. Oh, go sleep. Like, you don't even need to explain anything.
Yeah, just not having that kind of, not having that need to get permission to have a rest and actually give your body what it needs in order to function. I think that's really, really important. So Jess, I'm loving everything that we've been talking about. I feel like we could go on all day.
Probably.
You've been my guest this month in the Business Club for Grown-Ups membership group, and you've been showing us how we can turn a business plan into a 90-day action plan, which is something that has been really, really huge in my own business. It's something that you've been helping me do this year. And I know that it's something that will be really, really helpful for people listening to this. So if you want to find out more about that, you can go to thebusinessclubforgrownups.com and you can find out about how to become a member, because the doors will shortly be open to our membership group again. So do come and find out about that. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jess. It's been brilliant to have you tell us a little bit of your business story, how the last 2 years have gone. It's been brilliant kind of going through it with you at the time, but also just hearing now as you can look back and just see these big milestones and things where there has been a bit of a spanner in the works and things haven't gone to plan at all, but actually you've been able to just roll with the punches and turn your business into something which you really love in the way that you do now.
Yeah, I hope it helps somebody else to just know that it's messy. Like, it's okay. No, it's okay if it's not perfect. It's all right. You'll get there. Keep going.
Definitely. I just couldn't agree more. You know, it's not always something that goes to plan. It's not always something that looks great from behind the scenes, but actually it's amazing what you can achieve if you just have a clear plan in place that is adaptive to your circumstances. And if you can just be kind to yourself above all else and really make sure that you're providing yourself with the things that you need in order to thrive. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me, Jess.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Business Club for Grown-Ups podcast with Jessica Fearnley. To find out more, visit thebusinessclubforgrownups.com.